So hello everyone and welcome to Sambhav Law. This is Varsha. She is a student from NLSIU Bangalore. So Varsha, can you introduce yourself for the audience first?
Hello everyone, my name is Varsha Singh and I'm from Chittorgarh, Rajasthan. I did my BA LLB honours from National Law University, Patiala, and since then I've been preparing for a few competitive exams and I recently gave CLAT PG and I secured AIR 52 in it.
So Varsha, like after getting this such a high rank AIF, how was the feeling? How did you feel as to getting such a big rank in CLAT? How was the feeling?
I am very grateful for it to multiple people for it, but it's still very unreal. I knew that my paper went well, but I did not expect to get such a good rank or to be in the top 60. I didn't expect it, so it still feels very unreal to me.
Yeah, and like Varsha, like if I talk about as to your preparation, how did you go about with your preparation, especially if I talk about the judgments? How did you prepare them, and like what was the whole strategy that you used while preparing?
All right. So, as all of you know, that before 2019, the pattern was entirely different, and then it changed entirely after 2020. So, I first went through the past year's paper, very well analyzed it, looked at what all was being asked, and then I realized that current affairs were being asked a lot, or recent judgments for that matter. So, what I did was I actually first, so I'm in a habit of reading the newspapers. So whatever judgments that I felt were very important that were passed in the last 1 year, I jotted them down on a paper and then one by one I read them. And I also referred to a lot of YouTube videos, especially, for example, your channel, Sambhav Law's channel, then Study IQ. There were a couple of YouTube channels that gave very nice summary of it. And then, of course, Live Law, which all law students must follow because it has very concise observations on Supreme Court judgments. Also, a Supreme Court Observer website. It also has summaries of Supreme Court judgments. So I would say that you can't find all of it in one place. So you'll have to go through a lot of sources, and that's what I did. So I maintained a register in which I kept taking notes from whatever landmark judgments that were happening, and then I kept revising it. And I would give a lot of mocks. And if there were any new judgments that I had not prepared and which were asked in that mock, then I would go back and read up those judgments. Other than that, I think it's also very important to revise your basic law, that is your static CRPC, IPC, constitution. It's important to revise fundamentals of those subjects as well.
Yeah, surely, Varsha, very well. So, Varsha, like apart from this, also like the pattern in the 2021 paper changed a lot. Like in the 2020 paper, it was already so much. There was so much like not disambiguity as to what the question paper should be. So, when you started the paper, when you started editing the paper in 2021, what was your response after seeing the paper? How did you change your gears with the strategy and how you did that exactly?
Yes. So that is true, even in substance and also in the pattern of questions, because in 2020 there was one passage and 10 questions from it, whereas this time around there was one passage and then 6 questions from it. So the number of passages were also more. So I realized that I'll have to read a little faster and it is going to take a little more time. It was a little lengthy. Secondly, a lot of it was very logical this time. I mean, it wasn't, a lot of those questions had their answers if you would carefully go through the paragraph. I mean, of course, you need to have background information, but at first, I attempted all the questions that I was 100% sure of. Secondly, whatever questions I was a little doubtful of, I reread that passage. On my first reading, I had already underlined certain keywords and phrases. So I would go through them again and then choose the most logical answer. So I would say that this paper not only tested your knowledge of the law, it also tested your reading ability and your comprehension, your logical understanding of the law as well. So it was
Yeah.
really different, and that's how I changed my strategy a little.
I see. As like Varsha, if I would ask just a general question, like if you start preparing for like the 2022 paper next year, which is coming. So if I ask you now, if you start preparing for it now, what will be your strategy going forward if you start preparing for it, 2022 CLAT PE paper?
Correct. So I would continue reading the newspapers thoroughly, especially the editorial parts, because they are the most relevant part of it. So I would keep that in a loop, keep reading live law a lot, and keep taking notes for the same. I would revise all of my basic laws again, just go through the Bear Acts one more time. And I think updating your notes, keeping in loop, reading live law or bar and bench, or even if you subscribe to a magazine weekly. So reading that, keeping up to date on whatever changes that are happening in the law, while also keeping in mind the landmark judgments. So yes, I think that is what one should do.
Okay, and like Varsha, as you already mentioned that Sambhav law helped you. So like, can you just tell us as to how Sambhav law exactly helped you out in your preparation?
Yes, I am really grateful to Sambhav Law for two reasons. One is that the YouTube channel has really well demarcated playlists. For example, if you want to study about reservation and promotions, so there's a playlist that has two, three videos about it. If you want to go about family property rights, there are a few videos on that. So I would go through that when I felt like I was not in the mood to read judgments or read articles. I would just go through those videos and a couple of other videos also. So one is that. Secondly, the mocks were really good. So I signed up for the mock series and I kept attempting them. In the first mock, I did not do well, but then I kept doing better and better, and my performance
Mhm.
also got better. So I think giving mocks is very important because it helps us track where do we stand, what are the areas that we are lacking in, and also among all the people who are attempting this, where do you stand? So it helped me in course correction. I would go back, what like I said earlier, whatever questions I could not attempt very well, I would just go through them one more time. So and a lot of those questions eventually ended up being asked in one way or the other in the CLAT paper. So
In the
that way
chat.
for the mock series, it's yes. So for the mock series, I would say that it was really good and it really helped.
Yeah, we are very grateful for this. Thank you very much for crediting us. And apart from that, Varsha, you have enrolled now in NLSIU. So like, how is your experience in the new college? How did everything happen? And how was the screening process? How did everything happen? How do you feel right now about that whole thing?
Yes, I think every law student in India, or everybody who appears for CLAT in the first place, just dreams of going to NLS Bangalore. So I couldn't go there for my undergraduate, but I'm so glad that I get to do my LLM from the best law school that there is in India. So about the screening process, so our results came out on the 29th of July and the first list was published on 1st August. I would say that the Bangalore authority, they were really quick in doing everything because on the 1st August itself, we got a mail that asked us to register, that asked us to verify our documents. There was an orientation week, and then within 1 week, the classes also started. So now it has been almost 1 month that I have been taking classes at NLS Bangalore. And about my experience in my new college is that it is really worth it, and there's a reason why it is the best law school in India. I can see it now. So the faculty is just I've never read from any better faculty. The faculty is great. The classes are very interactive. The student group in itself is very diverse and very interactive. The teachers, they have specially curated materials, so we are required to read certain papers before we come to class, and those papers are just they're of the best quality, very well curated. In the class, they take up doubts, they entertain questions from students. So overall, it's good, but I would also say that it is a little more hectic than I thought it would be because it is a trimester
Yeah,
system. There's
yeah, yeah.
continuous deadlines of some project or the other, and then we have exams in a month from now. So like that, it's a little hectic, but it is a great experience.
I see. No, actually, it's really nice to hear from you about these things because NLS Bangalore obviously is one of the best colleges in India, and like enrolling in that is always worth it, definitely. Now, apart from that, Varsha, like if I ask you, what tips would you like to give to our viewers, the participants that those are watching this video? What would you say as to how they should, improve their performance and as to how they can prepare better for the next year's exam?
I would say that the most important thing is to, at least on a weekly basis, and if you can't do it on weekly, then monthly basis, keep giving mocks or test papers or go through the previous year papers specially. Now that the pattern has changed, there are only two previous papers for reference, 2020 and 21. So I would say go through them as many times as you can so that you can gauge. It's not very predictable, like we saw that the pattern is, it keeps changing a little bit. But still, if you keep practicing, then it helps you keep a track of everything. So keep doing that, keep giving mocks, and also keep revising your basics also. Like we saw in this paper, a lot of CRPC was asked because bail issues and bail related matters were in the discussion throughout the year. So if your basics about bail provisions are clear, then you would have gotten well in this CLAT. So like that, you can't predict what concept they might ask. So just keep revising your basics. Keep reading live law. That is very important. Or if not that, just keep reading the most important judgments in magazines or newspapers. And yes, do give mocks. I think that would be the most important advice that I have ever received and that I would like to give is keep giving as many mocks as you can.
Yeah, definitely. And like Varsha, like apart from this, like do you think there were any mistakes or any pitfalls that you made while you were preparing for this CLAT PG exam? Are there any things that you would like to point out if you had, like if you think you had?
Yes. I would say that I panicked a little bit while giving the exam because, of course, the pattern is different and it just keeps changing. I expected that a lot of landmark judgments will be asked, but not a lot of those judgments came. So it's important not to panic, but that is for the exam. As far as the preparation goes, I think I did not revise my basic fundamental law as much. I focused more on the current judgments, which again is important, but it's equally important to focus on your static knowledge as well. So keep doing both of that. Also, I started giving mocks pretty late. I think if I had started giving those a little earlier, then I would have been able to see my shortcomings
Mhm.
and start rectifying them even earlier. So yes, I think those were some
I
of the
see.
mistakes I made, and one should not.
So basically, all in all, you would point out that it's important to give mocks. Apart from that, both the foundational knowledge of all the static subjects and the case laws that we prepare, both of them are very, very important when it comes to the CLAT PG examination because the pattern itself is not very predictable. Like if I'm correct on that part.
Yes, so absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Virsha, very much for joining us for this wonderful interview. And I hope that our viewers watching this interview would learn a lot from this conversation that we have today. And I wish you the very best for the future and uh, best of luck. Thank you very much.